Welcome to another episode of the Communicative Leader. I'm your host, Dr. Leah O, and today we're diving into a topic that's perhaps the single greatest challenge to sustain strategic leadership: burnout and the resulting communication gap. Today we're joined by Laura Cardwell, a mystic neuroscientist and co-author of the powerful new book, Unstuck Yourself: Thrive Beyond Burnout and Discover Your True Purpose. In a world demanding more and more from leaders, the ability to communicate with purpose is often lost when a leader feels depleted and disconnected. Laura's unique approach blends the science of applied neuroscience with the wisdom of human design and somatics. This methodology offers a transformative solution and provides leaders with actionable tools to reconnect with their authentic selves and critically lead and communicate from within. Her work asserts that the greatest strategic advantage is a well-aligned, purposeful leader whose internal clarity translates directly into external, influential communication. In today's episode, we're going to explore how Laura's strategies can help you move past overwhelm and stop communicating from this place of reaction or stress, and instead foster a culture of sustainable success and genuine, purpose-driven leadership. If you are ready to unlock your most authentic and powerful leadership voice, this episode's for you. Let's dive in and have some fun. Hello, and welcome to the Communicative Leader, hosted by me, Dr. Leah O'Million Hodges. My friends call me Dr. O. I'm a professor of communication and a leadership communication expert. On the Communicative Leader, we're working to make your work life what you want it to be. Laura, welcome to the Communicative Leader. I'm really excited to spend some time with you today. And I know your expertise, you combine mystic neuroscience with practical tools for leadership. And this is so exciting for me to learn more about. And I'm hoping, to set the stage, you could share a little bit about your personal journey into this unique blended approach, and kind of maybe that time when you started to realize that leader's inner state is inextricably tied to their outward strategic communication.
Yes, absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And right, so you don't get to this kind of blend of mystic neuroscience with practical tools for leadership without having to really have done the work, right? So the journey is long and winding to have gotten me to a place where this is where I'm leading, but ultimately it comes from my own story of burnout. I've run a couple of companies in my past, small businesses, and just grown them at a pace that was not sustainable. It wasn't true to my authentic self, and ultimately ended up in states of physical, emotional, mental, and even spiritual burnout. And so as I kind of went on my own personal growth, spiritual growth journey, I began to realize how important it is that we get the whole mind, body, soul working together. That often in our world, especially when it comes to our work in the world, our career, let's say, we're sacrificing one of those things to fulfill one of the others. And so, and at the heart of all of that, a lot of my background is in applied neurology, which is like an energy. It works with the energy of the brain, not necessarily the chemistry, which is what we would be doing if we were in psychiatry, or even the thoughts, which is more psychology. Applied neurology looks at it as an energetic system and how we get disruptions in the way that energy runs in the system. And so from that, I realized that's like what we're really talking about when we say that is nervous system work, right?
Okay, I was just thinking that. I was just thinking, I'm like, I wonder if this is connected to the nervous system. Like, this has got to be
exactly.
awesome.
Yeah. So
yeah.
It's so funny because sometimes I can really be brilliant, and sometimes I can just be dumb. Like it's like, I think we all have those moments.
Yeah.
And so for me, it took me a long time to realize that working with the energy of the system was working with the nervous system. To put those two things together took me a while, right? Like it's like, yeah, but it is. So your nervous system is really your brain and your spine working together. That is a mind-body connection, right? And so we see that in a lot of ancient modalities, or even Eastern modalities, that they've never really been separate. But really in our culture, we definitely look at them as two different things, and we do not use the body as a resource to help the mind. And so that's really how we get to this place where purpose then becomes regulating the nervous system helps the purpose of the soul use
Mhm.
the body to create, to
Mm.
become the leader that you're meant to be.
Yes, I love that. And I always think too, I think I'm not sure why we're so quick to separate things and call them mutually exclusive, especially when they're not. But I always find that there's so much truth when things are, we recognize how they're cyclical and interdependent and connected. And that's when we finally start to get, I mean, buzzwords like the synergy, but that's when everything works together. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. So, so Laura, thank you for sharing some of your experiences in the past that kind of led you here. Because my next question, I want to think about that cost of inauthentic communication. So, you do work, your work focuses on moving leaders beyond burnout. And
Mhm.
from a communication perspective, how does leader depletion, how does it not just affect productivity, but also compromise the authenticity and clarity of a leader's messaging? And what is
Oh,
the cost of that misalignment?
absolutely. It's such a great question because it's really, we're starting to kind of get into the heart of why. Why bother
Mhm.
being a purpose driven leader? Why
Yeah.
bother healing the burnout, right? Most
Mhm.
of our culture just teaches us to push through, just to push, right? And
Yep.
so I think there's a couple different costs. The first cost is personal. Like when
Mhm.
we're really out of alignment, our body, mind,
Mhm.
and soul is going to show us, right? We're
Yeah.
going to have pain in our
Mhm.
lives. And that could be physical pain. It can be emotional pain. It can be
Mhm.
mental pain. It can be spiritual pain, but we're going to experience pain. And
Mhm.
so, and then pain that isn't dealt with personally is projected.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
then we begin to project that pain onto
Mhm.
our people around us, our families, our corporations,
Yeah.
our businesses, right? And then pain that's being projected onto someone now becomes their responsibility and they have to take it on.
Mhm.
And so now you've got this like this cycle that needs to first be broken internally, right? And
Mhm.
we need to value slowing down and saying, well, why am I feeling
Mm.
pain?
Yeah.
And not just like, what's the band-aid I need for the pain, but like, let me
Yeah.
just like, you know,
Yeah.
so so what happens when a leader is living in pain of some sort
Mhm.
and trying to lead from that pain, that misalignment? I'll just,
Yeah.
those are words,
Yeah.
but like when people say misalignment, we're like, what does that mean? And I'm like, it means
Mhm.
pain,
Yeah.
right? Like that's what it
Yeah.
means. But when people lead from that, the cost of that is trust.
Mhm.
There's,
Yeah.
like I can't trust you as my leader because
Mhm.
you're projecting your pain on me,
Yeah.
right? And so, and now if I don't have trust, I don't have buy-in. I don't have
Mhm.
buy-in,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I'm not here for you now. I'm here for
Yeah.
me. And
Yeah.
now I'm going to start to make decisions that are based on me and
Mhm.
not the choice to be part of something that's here. So,
Yeah.
and when people stop trusting and buying into the corporation or the company they're working for, they've got one foot out the door. They're
Yes.
starting to look for something else, right?
Yeah.
Because you're now creating a pain point for them, which is now their
Mhm.
misalignment. And if
Yeah.
they're listening to their misalignment, they're going to start to make shifts in their life and you're going to lose them.
Mhm. Yeah.
So it's like you're gonna have the cost of that becomes a loss of productivity. I mean, we can see it
Mhm.
statistically in
Yeah.
the bottom line numbers, right?
Yeah.
We see turnover rates go up, we see productivity go down.
Mhm.
Vice versa, we've seen companies bring in, especially over the last 10 years, we've seen major companies like Microsoft and
Mhm.
Pepsi start to move towards heart-centered leadership decisions
Mhm.
and strategies
Yeah.
for productivity and longevity in the
Mhm.
workplace. And
Yeah.
they've had huge, I think one of those statistics is 236% increase in productivity,
Wow.
right? Like
Yep.
these
I
people are
believe
buying
it.
in.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So I think it's got a ripple effect that's much
Yes.
bigger than just like, I'm in pain and I'm just going to push through.
Yeah, exactly. And when you were talking, especially like losing trust, losing buy-in, I was thinking it's like a bad game of dominoes. Like you've
Yeah.
not like one thing knocks over the next, and then you realize you're in this place where you have more pain and
Yeah.
and less folks around you who are there for the collective, for
Yeah.
the group as a whole.
Yeah. And now you're just working with a group of people in pain.
Yeah.
It's, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
it's not,
Yikes.
it's
Yeah.
not going to grow. Right.
Yeah.
And what we know, and I think we'll probably talk about this at some point, is that growth really comes from internal resonance and alignment,
Mhm.
that synergy that you said,
Yeah.
like that's where growth
Yeah.
actually comes from. So you
Yeah.
can't grow if you're living in pain.
Yeah.
That's also, I mean,
Exactly.
pain can be a way to grow if you're
Yeah.
listening.
Yes,
So,
exactly. And I love too that idea when you're talking about these huge organizations that are taking kind of that heart-centered approach to leadership. I love the modeling, right? I love
mhm,
what that is communicating in terms of value. And that's what I tell organizations. You don't even really have to like buy in or believe this, but if you want to see the impact on your bottom line, you want
yeah,
people who are engaged, this is the path. And I love that so many organizations are starting to finally get on that healthy bandwagon.
absolutely. I don't think it's a choice. I mean, this
Mm.
might be skipping ahead a little bit,
Yeah.
but I do believe that kind of the future of business, the future of
Mhm.
wellness, the future of
Mhm.
prosperity,
Yeah.
the future of how we be in the world,
Mhm.
it really is about alignment and
Mhm.
resonance. And I
Yeah.
think even companies are waking up to like, oh, I mean, we see that, right? We see that with the whole millennial generation that was like,
Yeah.
I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
everybody's like, whoa, whoa, wait, you're not just going to be the cog in my wheel that I want you
Yeah.
to be.
Yep.
I'm just going to judge you back into it. And they're like,
Mhm.
no.
No.
Right now, they might have been the pendulum swinging kind of
Yeah.
hard to one side of like,
Mhm.
but what they're saying spiritually is like, I refuse
Yeah.
to be in pain in this
Yep.
company in some kind
Yep.
of way, So
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, and Gen Z is continuing with that torch and
yes, they
really
are.
yeah. Oh, I
Hmm.
love this. What a fun conversation, Laura. So, this is just like my happy place to be in. So, I want to learn you talk about a purpose gap, and I want to learn more about this. And I know you, in the work that you do, you help leaders reconnect with their authentic selves and lead from within. So, I'm hoping you can help us. How do you define authentic communication, especially when we have these high stakes corporate leadership environments, and then help us to think about this self alignment and what does that do for us then?
Absolutely. This is where you may have to rein me in. Okay.
No, no, you go, girl. I'm gonna encourage you.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, this is really kind of the heart of
Mhm.
my aha moment
Mhm.
in my work was this realization one day. I was studying, I mean, a lot of my background comes from studying perception, how we perceive
Mhm.
things, and that really helped me to begin to understand the how what we're thinking becomes this photon storm of electrical activity that
Mhm.
becomes neurotransmitters that sends chemical messages through the nervous system,
Mhm.
lighting up feelings and
Mhm.
sensations in the body, and then that becomes that literally delivers a message to the cell that says be this, do
Mhm.
this, right? And so this connection between what we are thinking ourselves into being and the meaning we assign our lives around
Mhm.
us and how we physically become that and how our environment begins to reflect that it's just fascinating when you get into that realm of study,
Mhm.
right? And so mind-blowing aha moment after
Mhm.
mind-blowing aha moment, right? And so but in that journey, in applied neurology, there's a lot of you're just kind of doing the thing. You're looking at the pathway, you're tracing the
Mhm.
pathway of where the energy goes from different areas of the
Mhm.
brain, and you kind of know what you know what you're
Mhm.
doing, you know where you are, you know what you're doing,
Mhm.
but you're not necessarily looking at it like a system, right?
Okay.
And so one day I was really deeply kind of following this. We have this pathway called the reward pathway, the motivation pathway,
Mhm.
and it kind of gets passed over a lot when we talk about all these other more important, like
Mhm.
fight or flight. People are focused on
Yep.
other kind of
Yep.
neurological pathways when we're looking at the nervous system. But I really began to slow down and look like at the primitive level. This pathway is the one
Mhm.
that gets us to go eat, to find shelter, right?
Mhm.
It motivates us. It
Yeah.
literally collects everything and says go into the world.
Mm.
And then as it gets into the more limbic areas or the more emotional areas of the brain, it becomes this pathway that's really about reward and pleasure and
Mm.
play. And, so it's like reward and motivation. And so it's like, that is I got the signal to go eat, but I actually went to eat ice cream because it made me
Yeah.
feel good,
Yep.
right? Like
Yep.
it's that drive to like go get
Yeah.
the ice cream and fill the bowl. And so we get so and that is a dopaminergic pathway. And we
Mhm. Mhm.
dopamine is something we're hearing tossed around a lot
Yep.
right now. It's kind of a
Mhm.
hot word. And dopamine is a motivator, right? It's a
Mhm.
motivator, but by itself, it has no real emotional context.
Okay.
And it can keep us in these loops of
Mm.
external validation.
Okay.
And so when we have leaders and when we have workers who are looking or being driven by external validation, then it is productive but meaningless.
Mhm.
And so it has no meaning. We haven't assigned any meaning to it. It's only when this same pathway travels kind of through the cortical areas of the brain, the thinking mind, and then back
Mhm.
down into the
Mhm.
system that we see it gather the neurochemistry that
Mm.
starts to assign deeper meaning. And
Okay.
that's the pathway that says, but why? Who am I here to
Mm.
be? Why am I here? We will inevitably start to question that because motivation is really curiosity, right?
Yeah.
We're curious.
Yep.
And so curiosity then
Mhm.
opens the mind. Curiosity
Mhm.
opens the mind in so many ways. And so when we're open, we're more creative, we're more innovative, we have more access to both the right and the left brain, and we're asking for deeper meaning. And
Mhm.
so
Mm.
for me, if you really want to be a high stakes leader,
Yep.
you have to be going beyond using that dopaminergic pathway. It will wear itself out. It
Yep.
will create either addictions or it will create burnout, right?
Mhm.
So it's like,
Yeah.
and for that long term kind of sustainable being able to let your purpose lead your communication, it has to have a deeper meaning. It has to access
Mhm.
that deeper
Mhm.
part of the neurology. So
Yeah.
that's we're waking up. I think we're waking up as a culture to like our purpose is more important than our doing.
Yep.
And when
Yep.
I say purpose, I always mean it's who I'm being. And
Mhm.
then from there, why I be that. And then from there,
Mm.
what I do. So
Okay.
we tend to talk about purpose as our career or what we're
Yeah.
doing, or
Yep.
doing,
Yep.
but it's actually even if we've evaluated that, we say why, right? So it's the
Mhm.
same pathway,
Yeah.
right? We the dopamine to the
Yeah.
seeking, but really below that, but in the depth of it, when we really
Mhm.
go in, purpose is about, am I being who I'm here to be,
Yep.
right? Am I in alignment with that truth?
Yeah.
And then am I
Yeah.
communicating from that place?
Yep. Exactly. And well, I love the learning the physiology of purpose and that deeper meaning making. And
Mm.
it is helpful, as a society that's wired for, I think, these like quick dopamine hits and this external validation, it becomes a lot easier to see why so many people get stuck on that track and
Yeah.
why it's so hard to get off of.
Yes. Yeah. I tell people all the time, getting the external validations at work is like eating sugar,
Yes. Yeah.
right? You're getting
Yeah.
every time somebody says, good job, you're
Yeah.
getting that little, but
Mhm.
it is finite. You cannot sustain it,
Yeah.
right? The real joy has to come from an internalized alignment, not
Yeah.
an externalized success.
Yes. Yes. Beautifully stated, Laura. So let's keep thinking about leaders. And
Mm.
that many of our most successful leaders in organizations and industries, they're subject matter experts, right? They've gotten here because they know they can talk the talk, they can walk the walk, but they
Yeah.
struggle to transition from communicating what they know to kind of who they are, or even the ability to connect these in meaningful ways. So
Mhm.
I'm wondering, in the work that you do, what do you see as these big internal barriers or these self-imposed old narratives that prevent our leaders from speaking their true purpose?
Oh, I mean, do we have all day
Yeah.
to talk about
Yeah.
the narratives, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, think about how many people end up in a leadership position in which they now feel the imposter syndrome of, I don't deserve to be here. That's
Yes.
the first
Oh yeah.
one, right?
Yeah.
Like, so much of leadership is based in self-worth and
Yes.
self-value. And
Yeah.
so if we don't believe we're worth the position that
Yeah.
we're in, then we're going to project pain because we're
Mm.
in pain, right?
Yep.
And so we're going to project that insecurity onto our team.
Mhm.
We're going to look for other people to validate us instead of knowing that we're
Yeah.
valuable just because
Yep.
we're in that role, right? So it starts with every single narrative, and we don't have all day to
Yeah.
list why we all have the
Yep.
narratives in which,
Yep.
and it is true also
Mhm.
statistically that women are more likely to experience the imposter syndrome as they move up in leadership
Yeah.
roles than men are. right? Like, because I mean, that's just a statistic that still just goes with all the other, they're
Yeah.
not being valued often the same,
Yeah.
right? So it's like we can, those things are
Mhm.
true, but I think so it starts with being willing to evaluate your own story about your own worth.
Mhm.
Do I believe I'm worth it? I also want to
Mhm.
just take a second and say here that I believe that every single human is a leader. It's
Mhm.
not,
Yeah.
we
Same.
call them
Yeah.
titled leaders, right? When they
Exactly.
finally,
Yeah.
when they're in a role in a company that's deemed a leader, we're looking at things from like a hierarchical perspective.
Mhm. Mhm.
But when we look at things on the full grid and not just in
Mhm.
one ladder order,
Yeah.
everyone is here to lead,
Yep.
and we're leading in different ways.
Mhm.
We lead from the front, we lead from the sides, we lead from the
Yeah.
back, we lead in all
Exactly.
sorts. Support is leadership.
Yes.
Empathy
Yeah.
is leadership.
Yeah.
So it's like, so all of us then are being asked to look at our story of self-worth and
Mhm.
self-value, right?
Yep.
Because if I'm in a support role in a company, do I value myself in the support role, and am I
Mhm.
being valued?
Mhm.
Because if I don't value me, no one else can value me. So
Yep.
I need to look at my narrative
Yeah.
around value.
Mhm.
I find that we wrap that conversation up in lots of different words. We can look at it
Mhm.
from lots of different angles, but when we really peel away the layers,
Mhm.
it almost always comes down to self-worth.
Yep. 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 I can see that. And it's so challenging, right? Like, and especially you bring up women in leadership positions, and we think about socialization and I mean, the literal narratives we hear on television, the headlines. And when you were talking, it made me think so way back in season 1 of this podcast, when I was just kind of finding my footing, I even did this episode all on my own, and it was about imposter syndrome. And even I think it's like 6 years later, it's still in my top 5 most downloaded. I was my
Wow.
own guest. I was just like
Wow.
presenting literature on it, you know, and so yeah, you could really see how that is one that kind of is this weight that continues to kind of pull pull people down and be a hard one to escape from.
It's so hard to I mean, I just want to say there, like, when we talk like this, it makes it
Mhm.
sound like it's easy to just name imposter
Oh,
syndrome.
yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's
No.
like,
Yeah.
but it's so
Yep.
much deeper than that.
Yep.
Like you said, it's in the energy of the world we're born into. It's not even
Yes.
just the narratives we're told.
Yeah.
It's reprogramming. And that is why it's so
Mhm.
important to get the mind, body, emotional system all on the same page. Because if
Mhm.
you're just doing the affirmations like, I am worthy, I am worthy, that's
Yep.
only working in the mental field. If your
Yeah.
nervous system doesn't believe that, you're
Yep.
still radiating a different story.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, it's deeper than just the mindset.
Yeah. And I'm wondering if this next question will get to that alignment.
Yeah.
And if not, maybe we can circle back to that. But I'm thinking about the strategic voice and thinking about your methodology. And I know you bring applied neuroscience, human design, and somatics. And I'm wondering how you integrate these principles to help leaders physically, mentally, spiritually create that strategic voice. And I think most important, that is sustainable,
Yeah.
right? And certainly, I think when we have all those, we can assume it's kind of rooted in purpose. But how do you, Laura, like, what does that work look like? How do we start to integrate those so that we really have that inner power, right? And that
Yeah.
inner peace and that source of energy that continues to give, instead of just, like you said, waiting for the external like hits of sugar in the office and
Right.
the good jobs and well done.
I mean, this is like, first of all, it starts with I got here because this is my journey. I
Hmm.
didn't read something in a book, go to school, learn it, and decide I was going to teach everybody how to do it.
Yep.
Like, I got here because this has been my journey to like trying to heal things and realizing I only had a piece of the puzzle. And
Hmm.
so I have this very long and varied background. I was an art jeweler. Actually, the first time I burnt out, I was an art jeweler for about 8 years, and I grew my company too fast. I had too many accounts, and I couldn't make the jewelry
Okay.
necessary in the time
Hmm.
frame. And I just ended up really in fetal position.
Hmm.
Just like I just could not function. It really deep states of burnout, and it wasn't because I didn't have the passion or the love. I
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
have the self worth to tell people no.
Yeah.
right? So as I start to kind of talk about these things, this has been on my personal journey back to health
Mm-hmm.
from
Yep.
being really, and I think health is a mind, body, soul thing. It's not just
Yeah.
one,
Yep.
and so I started off working with, like I said, the nervous system and the mental field of what's
Mm-hmm.
going on, and really kind of understanding how blocks in the energy of the spine and the brain created pain points mentally and emotionally and physically for people.
Mm-hmm.
And I really loved that work, like helping people kind of move that, see different things, and starting to ask the right question at the right time to get that
Yep.
energy to move in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Perspective can shift energy in really big ways. And that's where
Mm.
we bring in kind of coaching. Coaches don't give you answers, they ask you questions, right?
Yep.
And it
Mm-hmm.
gets you in that place. And so, but what I found was that no matter what, it was still kind of missing this, like, this deeper, but who am I here to be? Who am I
Mm-hmm.
here to be?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where human design danced around me for a long time. But human design, if for those people that don't know, it's like a personality quiz, like a Myers-Briggs,
Mm-hmm.
only it's what we call a timestamp. So it's based on your birthday.
Mm-hmm.
What I like about things that are based on your birthday is it takes away all of your story. You cannot use your
Yep.
filters to fill it out,
Yep.
right? Like,
Yep.
and so what we get is a really accurate imprint of what those filters, those
Okay.
perceptions might
Yeah.
be. And then we can see, like, oh, that's the way I perceive the world. And so therefore, this is the way
Yep.
my brain thinks. This is the way and it starts to fill in some of that that subtle body question that we have
Mm-hmm.
of, like, who am I here to be? Human
Mm-hmm.
design is not necessarily meant to be this map to, like, you're this, and this, and these are the boxes you're meant to live in. It's more a guide to how you be in the world energetically.
Okay.
And it tells you, like, who am I here to be first? What am I radiating from the inside
Yeah.
of me?
Yeah.
But then how am I meant to be in relationship with other
Mm-hmm.
people? And
Mm-hmm.
that's where it really takes it one step beyond a
Mm-hmm.
personality quiz, which is
Yeah.
generally focused on just me. This
Yes.
is
Yeah.
more about me in relationship to other. And then once I'm that, human design really begins to open up and answer. And also, how am I meant to serve? And that is where purpose really comes
Yeah.
in. Service is really our soul leadership, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
the thing I'm here to give back in a
Yeah.
bigger way. And so, but to incorporate all of those things
Yeah.
together, we need the body to get online.
Yep.
And that's where
Yeah.
somatics come in, right? So our physical bodies are just one constant signal to the brain. We actually have more information coming from the gut and the heart into the brain
Hmm.
than we have from the brain going to the body.
Oh, how interesting.
Right. And we
Yeah.
don't think of it that way, right?
Yep.
We think about brain
Yep.
down because we think
Yep.
hierarchy because
Exactly.
that's what we've
Yeah.
been trained to think,
Yeah.
right? So synergy, though, is that there's actually way more
Mm-hmm.
information coming the other way around, right? So we
Yeah.
get this, like,
Mm-hmm.
flow up and down. And if we're not listening to the body, now
Yeah.
I want to say this because right now there's this hot topic of, like, my body says you're not safe for me,
Oh.
right?
Yeah.
Like, and
Yeah.
I'm listening to my body and it says, this isn't safe and you need to change
Yeah.
that. And this isn't safe and you need to change
Yeah.
that. And I just want to name that that's a conversation that's going around. When we first start listening to our body, we realize we might not feel heard or valued or safe in certain
Yeah.
situations. And that does create some
Mm-hmm.
need for change.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're asking someone else to change to make it better,
Mm-hmm.
that's not what it's about,
Yeah.
right? Like, this is the body's wisdom for
Yeah.
us. And
Yeah.
so it might be that that person's not in alignment with you, that
Mm.
job is not in alignment with you, that situation's not in alignment
Yeah.
with you. But your work is to learn how to regulate your own nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the part of the conversation that I think has been left out.
Yes.
We're,
Oh, for
we've
sure.
somehow left it out, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's like we've almost turned. There's a really great book called The Coddling of the American Mind.
Okay.
And they kind of name the three things
Yeah.
that are going on in this younger generation that are becoming the challenge that happens when we,
Yeah.
like what they call coddling. And one of them is that we have this whole generation, this Gen X, Gen Z, the Gen Z and the millennial kind of,
Yeah.
where they're looking for the external environment to be safe
Yes.
instead of
Yeah.
learning.
Yeah.
No one's taught
Yeah.
them how to create safety in their own nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's
Exactly.
really what this blend of applied
Mm-hmm.
neuroscience, human design, and somatics is really doing, is it's teaching people how to create safety in their own system and
Yeah.
then to lead from that safety.
Yes.
That that knowing, that inner knowing. Once we feel safe to be
Yeah.
who we're meant to be, we can be it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I love so much about that, Laura. So I love, and I think your work is helping us to kind of formulate that answer to that question that a lot of people have been like, okay, I know that I need to learn how to better regulate this, but how? Like what what happens next? What are those steps? And it's funny too, when you're talking about these younger generations. So some of my peer reviewed most recent work, I've done some looking at when millennials transitioned in, and most recently with Gen Z. And essentially, it is folks who've been in organizations for a while being like, why do they expect us to change everything for them? We can't do this. And then these millennials and Gen Zers who are like, why aren't they changing these things? People are used to people change when we tell them this doesn't feel right, this doesn't feel good. And that's where we're seeing these like continued kind of clashes. So I was smiling because I always, you can see how these things are happening. You're seeing
yes,
what's going on in individuals, and then I'm looking at them in these big data samples, these large cohort groups, and we're seeing it in action.
absolutely. I think on a grand scale, we're moving from that hierarchy, right,
Yeah.
which has been kind
Yeah.
of controlled down, and not in
Yeah.
a bad way. I think it just was what was,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think it's not on accident. I think it is part of
Mhm.
our human growth
Yeah.
that we're at a place in humanity where we have to stop and say, wait, what is emotional regulation and why are we not teaching that? What is nervous system
Exactly.
safety and why are we not teaching how to access that? What is purpose and why are we not leading with that? I think
Yeah.
these are global questions that are being, that, I always believe that there's the interface of my personal growth. I have to do the
Mhm.
work
Yep.
internally, but we are also kind of looking at things generationally. We're looking at things, there's archetypes upon archetypes upon
Yep.
archetype,
Yep.
right? And then there's the
Exactly.
collective experience, and that's where archetypes actually come from. And
Yeah.
so at that collective level,
Yep.
we're at a place in human history where we're
Mhm.
saying, oh, wait, control is not a way
Mhm.
forward.
Yep.
Fear is not a way
Yep.
forward. That's not the way. And so we have these, we can look at those in microcosms and look at like
Yeah.
how that's showing up in generations. But what's bubbling up is that we've, we have, I'm almost 50.
Mm.
The generation before me had very little control. There
Yeah.
was not a whole lot of, and there was very
Mhm.
little emotional awareness, very
Yeah.
little. I mean, they had it for
Yeah.
themselves, but didn't bring that into the world.
No.
So
No.
like my generation is this
Yep.
bridging
Mhm.
generation
Mhm.
of, okay, I've been told that I need to just get in line and
Mhm.
do what I'm supposed to do, but I'm having all these emotions, and how do I
Yeah.
figure that out?
Mhm.
And our leadership role, I believe, our leadership role
Mhm.
as a generation in every role in which we are
Yeah.
is to teach the younger generations how to emotionally regulate.
Yes. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
part of our role.
What a gift. And I
Yeah.
think this next question kind of helps us to start thinking about that in ways. I know you have a new book coming out, and I'm so excited about it. And I wonder if we could think about how to transform being overwhelmed into clarity. And I know in your book you kind of talk about this practical step-by-step strategy for leaders to take those moments of internal when they're overwhelmed or that decision fatigue, and then how do we get unstuck? How do we translate that into internal clarity and, allowing that to shine through in our messaging then in our relationships with others?
I mean, yes, yes. So, and this is the heart of the book, right? Is that it's not enough just to know things. We have to
Hmm.
be different.
Yeah.
And in order to be different, we need tools, right? We
Yes.
cannot just like,
Yeah.
we cannot think ourselves to different. We won't
Yeah.
change, right? Often our thoughts are based in very old programming.
Yeah.
And so part of the work is deprogramming what that older messaging is. And
Hmm.
so in the book, we give the last part of the book, we really give the full, what we call the integrative somatic experience,
Okay.
which can be broken down into many practical steps. But the very first one is to breathe.
Hmm.
And it's so funny, Leah,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
so many people, like, we know this. We
Yeah.
scientifically, we know what breath does for us,
Yes.
right? We know
Yeah.
this. But if you ask people, it's when I do these talks or these workshops, and I'm like, okay, how many people have heard that your breath can help regulate your nervous system? And almost everybody raises
Yeah.
their hand. And then I say, keep your hand up if you do that when you need it.
Yeah.
And only
All the
like one
hands.
hand.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, it's like, because it's hard for us to remember to use the tool
Yes.
in the
Yeah.
moment.
Mhm.
That's because that's what a reactive brain does. It takes us out of our, what I call our responsible mind, which is the one that's able to respond. And
Yeah.
it takes us into reactive mind, which is
Mhm.
way faster. And our reactive mind is often based in primitive fears and fight or flight
Mhm.
and nervous system dysregulation.
Yeah.
So practically, in the book, we give like some different examples of some ways you can kind of change the neurology in the moment.
Mhm.
That, like, if you have, we start with, if you can't get away and you need to handle it right now in the
Yeah.
boardroom,
Yeah.
how do you belly breathe? 3 big full
Yeah.
box breaths to,
Yeah.
like, before you open your mouth. It's
Yeah.
amazing. Breath, I mean, we could talk about breath for a whole
Mhm.
episode,
Mhm.
and what it does to the system. But what it does to the brain is it accesses creativity, and
Oh,
creativity gives us clarity.
yeah.
And so there's a direct correlation between oxygen in the brain, our ability to
Mm.
respond, and our ability to answer with clarity from our breath. Now
Mhm.
that actually goes all the way back to Chinese medicine, and the basis of Chinese medicine. There's 5 elements, and
Mm.
the element of metal is the lung energy,
Oh.
and the element of the lung and the metal energy is clarity and understanding
Oh.
from a higher self, right? So like, this is not something that's new to us, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying there, is that we can trace that back. And
Mhm.
so I tell people, if you only have 3 seconds to answer the question, use those 3 seconds to breathe.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is to breathe from the body and not your mind. So don't,
Mhm. Yeah.
like, literally
Yeah.
get into the lowest part of your body you can feel,
Mhm.
whatever that is, and breathe from there,
Mhm.
because you're reconnecting then the mind body connection,
Yeah.
and you can
Okay.
access the wisdom of the
Yeah.
body. We tend to feel like a culture, and I am very guilty of this, that feels a pressure to answer from our minds, to be
Mm.
certain, to know,
Mm.
but wisdom, I mean, this is
Mhm.
knowledge, right? What we've
Yeah.
got in our brain, but wisdom comes from the body.
Yeah.
So a few deep breaths and connecting to the body, and it's amazing what comes out your mouth, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, that's the
Yeah.
answer, right?
Yeah.
Like, so, and then if you need more, if you have a little more time, the book does
Mhm.
give you some deeper things where you can
Yeah.
really move the emotion that's in the way, if
Yeah.
that's what's going on. But
Yeah.
but always the first thing, the step by step, the
Yeah.
first thing is always breath.
Awesome. Yeah, right, and something we can always access,
Yeah.
but that we usually tend to forget. But if we're thinking about it, I like that. I always love like teaching leadership communication, that tool analogy, and being like, we eventually you want to get to a deeper where it's part of your lens and your view. But in the beginning, if we are recognizing, like, I need help regulating, then pulling out that breathing tool and thinking about that is the way it's going to set you up to be more successful.
Right. And for right now, breathing is
Yeah.
free,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and like, it's like you have access to it in the moment. It doesn't require that you remove yourself. You have other tools.
Yes.
It's like, the other thing that I have found that's really important is can I connect to someone?
Mm.
Like,
Mhm.
clarity cannot come from chaos. I mean, clarity does come from chaos when it comes from wisdom and not knowledge, but
Yeah.
it's like, sometimes I tell people, like, connect to their self first and then look up and connect to someone.
Mhm.
Right? Often
Yeah.
when we're trying to get the answer from our own craziness,
Yeah.
we can't we need to co-regulate sometimes. So
Yeah.
find someone
Yeah.
who's making eye contact with you and hold it for a second.
Yeah.
It's amazing what
Exactly.
connection can do to open up energetic
Oh,
space.
100%. Yeah, that's something I learned. I have an anxious kiddo, and one of the best things that I learned was how communicative nervous systems are.
Oh
And
yeah.
so just being able to maintain my own regulation
Yeah.
and calm in that moment would so quickly calm everything down for that little.
Yeah. I
So,
mean, we could talk about the
mhm.
science of co-regulation and
Yeah.
what that
Yeah.
actually means for a long time. But
Mhm.
it is true. We are energetic beings in interaction with other energetic beings, and
Ex
our energy affects other people
Yeah,
and their energy affects us. So it is true,
exactly. Yep.
right? Like, yes.
So that makes me think in communication, we have a theory, emotional contagion, right? And
Yeah.
it's explaining that just in different words. But
Yeah.
I
And it
love
works
when
both
this
ways.
yeah.
Like, you can have an emotional contagion that is someone who's angry in an office
Oh,
and
yeah.
everybody is dancing around that
Yep.
person and feels the anger. But you can also have someone who's just a little drop of sunshine and
Bingo. Yep.
everyone feels that, right? It does work both ways.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So let's talk about skepticism. Because imagine sometimes, I mean, even as a leadership communication scholar, I'll have people, especially the old guard, who pretty
Yes.
skeptical of it. So I'm wondering, Laura, when you're shifting to this purpose driven, authentic leadership style, I think that it's often, not often, it can be mischaracterized as soft in some
Yeah.
traditional business environments. So I'm wondering, how can leaders effectively communicate, in bottom line benefit terms, how you're unstuck yourself is part of your book title, how this approach can lead to secure buy-in and motivate those around them.
Yeah. I mean, it took me a long time to really know this about myself, but I have a really logical brain. And I always really identified myself as kind of the more creative because I was raised in a house of deeply skeptical scientific minds. And
Okay.
so
Yeah.
compared to them, I was
Yeah.
creative, right? Like it was like
Yeah.
they, like they're incredibly high producing, amazing humans, right?
Yeah.
So I have an amazing family, but it took me a long time to understand that I actually part of my human design is to be skeptical.
Okay.
And that skepticism serves my curiosity
Hmm.
so that I can build those bridges. So one of the things I often find myself is in a room full of the old guard, the
Yeah.
skepticism, like, and how do we communicate how important this new type of leadership to
Yeah.
them? To them, it is like a new paradigm of leadership. There's,
Yes. Yeah.
it's often foreign, right? And
Hmm.
so, and it hasn't worked for them in the past. I want to
Yeah.
say that, like,
Yeah.
they can list out why soft leadership has not worked
Yeah.
for them and it hasn't gotten the results. And so I try and help them understand that emotional intelligence is not the same thing as soft leadership.
Hmm.
Soft leadership is no boundaries. Soft
Yeah.
leadership is no leadership,
Yeah.
right? Leading with emotional intelligence is different than just not leading.
Yeah.
But, and
Exactly.
that's what they've correlated often
Yeah.
is that to lead with emotional intelligence means I can't lead. I
Yeah.
can't I can't tell people what to do. And I'm like, you can tell people what to do, but you're going to
Yeah.
tell people what to do from a more informed
Yep.
and a more neurologically efficient place.
Yep.
Right. So if you are regulated and leading and communicating from authenticity, and that's what I often tell them is it's for them, it's not about making everybody else be different.
Yeah.
It's about leading from their authenticity.
Yep.
Once they do that, that's regulating their emotional system. They're co-regulating the people in the room
Yes.
to their authenticity. And then those people want to do what you
Mhm.
want them to do
Exactly.
versus trying to control them into doing it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Like, and that's inefficient and often
Mhm.
doesn't work. And then you lose people, and then I remind them that to be regulated in your nervous system is efficiency, right? Like
Yeah.
the brain is always trying to be efficient.
Yep.
And so an efficient regulated leader is more creative, they're more innovative, they make better decisions, they retain their client, their people in their company longer, they
Mhm.
have long-term buy-in from they don't just expect people to commit, they create an
Mhm.
environment in which people want to commit,
Yep.
and that's different. And so
Oh, yeah.
and that ultimately will save their organization. Like,
Mhm.
then we put it into statistics, right? Like, it
Yes.
saves money, it creates better productivity, it reduces
Yeah.
turnover, it increases engagement, right? Like, the data backs authentic leadership much more than it backs
Yeah.
controlling leadership, which the
Oh,
old
yeah.
guard has only ever learned how to control their way into
Yep.
leadership, and it's not their fault, it's what they were modeled.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, and I like too that you raise up that, 10, 15, 20 years ago, an authentic approach probably would have fallen flat, or you would have had to
Right.
find the exact right environment for this to thrive. And I think that's a really helpful way of removing any potential blame or shame and recognizing that things have changed.
Yeah.
And you have this option now to change with it. And it's likely to feel a lot better and like authentic in the title, right? It says it all there.
And they need to be validated in their what they've created. We're
Yeah.
currently in a culture that's fairly shaming of them.
Yes. Yep.
And so they're fairly defensive right now, and
Yep.
I get it.
Yep.
Right?
Mhm.
Like there's it feels like they're being devalued
Mhm.
and instead of appreciated but need to change. And if you can appreciate
Yes. Yep.
what they've created and who they are, then
Mhm.
they're willing, like everybody's willing to make changes when they're feeling appreciated. Look
Yep.
at every single kind of, but
Yep.
we're in a dangerous place of shaming and blaming. And I don't think that's leadership.
No. Nope. Nope. I agree. Couldn't
Yeah.
agree more. Yeah. So let's look at sustainable success again, because I think that in a lot of the conversations I've had, I've talked to people. I've tried this and it worked for a little bit, or I've done this for a little bit, but I couldn't sustain it. I couldn't integrate it into, that daily repertoire. So, in your experience, Laura, how does communication, when it's deeply rooted in purpose and transparency, how does that foster a culture of trust, especially when that leader is communicating strategy in a different way?
Yeah. I think this is one of the places where human design really plays out
Mm.
in the when we bring human design into to the culture, to the teams. Human design is really about the ecosystem of humans and how we interact. And
Yeah.
so when we first learn who I'm meant to be and how I
Mhm.
function best in the world, and I really do the internal work to align with that, and that can be hard. I'm not devaluing the
Yeah.
process of that. That can be
Yep.
hard. But what it happens energetically is we become what I call resonant, a
Mhm.
resonant leader,
Mhm.
meaning I'm really in alignment
Mm.
with
Mhm.
my mind, body, and soul are all in alignment, and I become a resonant leader. And a resonant leader is magnetic.
Okay.
It's got
Yeah.
charisma, right? We
Mhm.
feel it, we know it,
Yep.
we're attracted to it, and so in this journey then to creating teams or sustainable cultures or sustainable success, they're not looking for perfection, they're looking for congruence. We're looking for
Mhm.
everyone being in their resonant leadership. If everyone
Mhm.
in the room is in their resonant leadership,
Mhm.
what happens energetically is we are amplifying something much bigger
Mm.
that
Mhm.
becomes something much bigger than even the sum of its parts,
Yeah.
right? It's like there's an amplification that comes when we trust
Mhm.
that each person's authenticity is valuable, and what
Yeah.
happens right now is that we can often not feel like if that person isn't acting exactly the way that I think they should,
Yeah.
then it won't work, right? Like, but if
Mhm.
we trust that diversity in that
Yep.
way, like people are meant to be different,
Yep.
and if we allow that difference in the way they need to be, the way they need to
Mhm.
show up, the way that even like when we really dive into human design, some people aren't meant to work 9 to
Mm.
5. What
Yep.
happens if
Oh,
we
yeah.
trust them to work
Mhm.
based on their
Mhm.
energy flow?
Yep.
Then they're way more productive. They bring way more to the
Exactly.
table,
Yep.
like, so it's like there's it's a trust that flows both way.
Yes.
And but if
Yep.
you can really learn to trust, and we are not a culture that learns to trust very
Yeah.
easily, right? Because it's like
No. Yeah.
trust isn't trained in us. And I think that goes back to like we have so many of us were even born into like, let's just say religions that taught us like trust was outside of us. We needed to trust in something out there, so it's
Yeah. Yeah.
like learning to trust can feel foreign,
Yeah.
and then trusting
Yeah.
myself first and
Yeah.
then outward. So sustainable success happens through this internal work
Mhm.
towards alignment, which creates resonance, which creates more charisma,
Yeah.
and then amplifies a team
Yeah.
in a way that's like I say that's where the magic happens, because you cannot even
Yeah.
now you're into the realm of possibility, and you cannot even think your way to where that team is going.
Yes.
It's can't even
Exactly.
you can't even put on your vision board how great that
Yeah.
team might be.
Yeah.
It shocks you.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's that. And trust comes from
Mm.
the safety of knowing I am safe in me and you are
Yeah.
safe in you, and it's safe for you to be you and it's safe for me
Yeah.
to be me. And we've relearned how to navigate relationship from that place. And that requires emotional regulation
Hmm.
and being willing to have hard conversations
Yeah.
and being willing to stay in our authenticity and being willing to stay curious. And, and those are just things that we're just relearning. We've known them, they're in
Yes.
there, but we're
Yes.
relearning them in
Yeah.
business and leadership.
Exactly. That's what I always think. I'm like, those are hard things for sure. But I think it's also important to raise up like staying in an inauthentic place or being in an organization where we don't trust and we don't have buy-in. That's a really hard place and a hard thing too. So it's kind of like choose your hard. And one's going to come with a lot more benefits than the
Yeah.
other.
Yeah. Yeah. One's going to probably lead to burnout somewhere.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's like, you
Exactly.
can't carry those. We say it's wearing masks, you can't wear the masks for forever.
Yeah, exactly.
They have a cost.
Yeah. So, Laura, I have two final questions for you, and these are interconnected. This is the way we end all of our episodes of the Communicative Leader. So, the first part is, what is the advice, the challenge, the tip for our titled leaders out there? And then the second part of the question is, what do you want to leave employees of all ranks across all industries in terms of that tip, challenge, or piece of advice related to leadership communication?
Absolutely. So starting with the titled leaders,
Yeah.
you know, when asked this kind of question, it took me a while to kind of hone in on how I wanted to answer that question, because
Yeah.
there's so much you want to leave a leader with, right?
Yeah.
But I have learned that if I could just give one piece of advice, it's curiosity.
Mhm.
It's like curiosity. If I just stop and get curious about how I'm feeling, about how they're feeling, about what's
Mhm.
going on, about am I in alignment? Am I about to say something from my true self, or from a mask that I'm wearing? Am I listening to them fully? Curiosity opens the pathways that open up the right and the left brain together, and we get the cohesion
Mhm.
state, right? And
Mhm.
so I would give every leader to be a curious
Yeah.
leader, like to ask more questions. And
Mhm.
if you're not sure, close your mouth and say, tell me more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's pretty much all of us could use
Mhm.
that in every
Oh,
relationship
yeah.
that we have.
Yeah.
And then for the employees of the world, for the rest of us, I would say that learning that burnout isn't a failure. You haven't failed your
Mhm.
way to a place.
Yeah.
It's feedback. It's like,
Mhm.
wait, I'm being given an opportunity to look
Yeah.
again and say, wait, something in that whole situation wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And either I need to clean up my side of the road because I've brought some of my,
Yeah.
know, my shit with me to
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
or or the environment is not working for me.
Yeah.
And that can be a scary thing. I want to name that.
Yeah.
Even the idea that I might need to change jobs or I might need to change something in my life can be pretty scary for the nervous system. So
Yeah.
same advice, curiosity.
Yeah.
I wonder what
Exactly.
my body's trying to give me.
Yeah. And I really love, because I think you're right. So many people see burnout as failure. Like I have fundamentally screwed something up.
Yeah.
Like I have driven this right into the wall. But I love that idea as feedback and recognizing that, we're taking away that blame and that shame
Yeah.
and saying, like, what are we learning? Getting curious about why we've gotten here and why we feel this way. Because then we can be productive. We're not stuck.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Those words. Yes.
Yes. Oh, Laura, this has been an absolute delight. I have learned so much, and I love leadership communication, and it's so just thrilling for me when I can learn about different elements and different fields that are infusing into it in such important and innovative, and I really think sustainable ways that
Yeah.
we're going to see some cool changes. So thank you for sharing your time and expertise with us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful.
All right, my friends, that wraps up our conversation today. Until next time, communicate with intention and lead with purpose. I'm looking forward to chatting with you again soon on the Communicative Leader.